They were blood red. 6 of them. Freshly trimmed, no thorns. I even tied a little black ribbon around the stems, because I knew she'd notice. Marnie always noticed packaging. She walked in 2 hours later wearing that beige trench coat she saves for dates. Only I hadn't taken her on one in months. Smelled like hotel soap and stranger's cologne. She glanced at the flowers, eyebrows raised, then at the note beneath them, written in the same shaky handwriting I used to sign our wedding papers. Thank you for teaching me how to be invisible. She didn't understand at first. She thought it was an apology, a peace offering. She smiled, actually smiled, and whispered, "You didn't have to." No, I didn't have to. But I did. Because she ignored me for 27 days. 27 nights of separate rooms, blank stares, fake yawns, silent meals. No fights. No passion. Just distance. Just that crushing, humiliating silence that feels louder than any scream. So I left her flowers. And a gift bag. Inside, a burner phone. Fully charged. Loaded with screenshots. Screenshots of her messages with Ames. Her co-worker. Her creative partner. Her nothing's going on Ames. He brought me toast this morning like a little puppy. I wish you were here. I'm so done playing house. He still thinks this is just a rough patch. Pathetic. I read them all. Each one felt like a paper cut to the soul. So I printed every single message. Bound them like a journal. Titled it, "The Month My Marriage Died." I left it next to the roses. And then I left the house. No yelling. No confrontation. No, we need to talk. She wanted silence. She can keep it. I'll be somewhere loud. I didn't go far. Just down the street to an old laundromat that still had vending machines from the 90s and a broken radio stuck on static. I sat in the corner next to a dryer thudding out someone else's life, holding a plastic bag with just one change of clothes, my car keys, and the remote to the security cameras I installed 2 months ago without telling her. Not because I didn't trust her. Back then, I installed them to feel safe. Safe from break-ins. From the outside world. I didn't realize the real threat had already moved in, unpacked her things, and stopped saying goodnight. She didn't call me that night. Didn't text either. She must have seen the photos. The printed messages. The flight confirmation. A one-way ticket to Ames's city. Paid in full. No refund. Departing Sunday. I'd even included a prepaid Uber gift card and a note that read, "Just say it was a girls' weekend again. You're good at that." I know how that sounds. Petty. Bitter. Maybe even cruel. But I wasn't trying to hurt her. I just wanted her to know I saw her. That I wasn't as blind and pathetic as she believed. I gave her the one thing she refused to give me for weeks, acknowledgement. What I didn't expect was what happened the next morning. I came back home at 7 a.m. to grab a few more things while she was supposedly at her weekend yoga retreat. Except, her car was still in the driveway. And inside, she was in the kitchen, sitting on the floor in her silk robe, surrounded by torn flower petals and shredded paper. The burner phone I left her? Smashed. My note. Ripped into 20 pieces and taped back together like she couldn't decide whether to destroy it or frame it. She looked up at me like I was the one who betrayed her. "You seriously went through my stuff," she snapped, her voice trembling with that kind of righteous anger people fake when they know they're cornered. That was private. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I just walked past her to the hallway closet, grabbed my duffel bag, and said, "So were we." She didn't follow me. Not then. Just sat there among the wreckage of her own lies, stunned that the quiet guy she'd been ignoring for nearly a month finally got louder than all her excuses. As I turned to leave, she said the most unexpected thing. I never meant for it to go that far. I paused at the door. Not because I believed her, but because that sentence is what cheaters always say when they realize the game's over. I didn't even look back. Just said, "Good. Then getting on that plane should be easy." But trust me, things were far from over. The first 48 hours after I walked out were quiet. Not peaceful quiet. More like the kind of eerie stillness before a thunderstorm cracks open the sky. I stayed at a cheap motel on the edge of town, the kind with humming vending machines and towels that smell like old coins. I thought maybe she'd call. Not because I hoped she would. Honestly, I didn't know what I felt. But because Marnie never liked feeling like she wasn't in control. But instead, silence. Not a text. Not a voicemail. Not even a fake, "Hope you're okay." I started to think maybe she was relieved. That she'd already packed her bags and followed the map I left her, right into Ames's arms. I almost made peace with that idea. Almost. Until 2:41 a.m. 2 nights later, when the motel phone rang. Not my cell. The landline in the room. I didn't answer. Who even knows that number? Then it rang again. And again. On the fourth call, I picked up. I didn't say a word. Mason. Her voice was sharp. Uneven. Not crying, but close. Where are you? Still, I said nothing. I let her stew in it. In that void she created. I swear to God. You can't just disappear like this, she hissed. You think this makes you the good guy? There it was. The real Marnie. Not the one who whispered apologies. The one who snapped her fingers and expected the world to reset. The one who painted herself the victim, even when she lit the match. You ghosted me for a month, I finally said, voice low. I figured I'd return the favor. A pause. Just static. Then a shaky exhale. I didn't cheat on you. I almost laughed. I never said you did. But it's telling that's your first defense. She hung up. I stood there in that motel room, staring at the blinking light on the old phone, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something that wasn't pain. Power. I knew then I wasn't going back. Not to her. Not to that house where I became a ghost. But I also wasn't done. Because Marnie thought this was over. She had no idea that I'd already sent copies of the messages to someone she'd really hate hearing from. No, not Ames. Her mother. I didn't send the screenshots to her mom to be spiteful. It wasn't about revenge. It was about exposure. Marnie had carefully curated a version of herself that only existed on the surface. Respectful daughter, loyal wife, successful designer, spiritual empath. That's who her family saw. That's the story she sold. But behind closed doors, she was ice in the shape of a person, calculating, dismissive, and addicted to being adored. And I figured, if she wasn't willing to admit what she'd done, then maybe the version of her reflected through someone else's eyes would finally crack her mask. Her mom's name is Lorraine. Sweet woman. Wore too much lavender perfume and treated me better than my own family ever had. She called me her bonus son. I emailed her everything. Every message, every photo, every detail. I added no commentary, no accusations. Just the raw truth. I didn't even know if she'd read it. But she did. I found out less than 12 hours later, when Marnie showed up at the motel. I heard the knock and didn't even need to check the peephole. Her knocks had a rhythm. Two fast, one soft. Same way she used to knock on the bathroom door when she forgot her hair straightener. I opened it slowly. Her face wasn't angry. It was something worse. Frantic, tear-streaked, desperate. Her eyes were wide, hollow, rimmed in smeared mascara she hadn't even bothered to clean. She looked like someone who'd just lost a job or been hit by a storm she didn't see coming. How dare you involve my mother? She snapped, voice raw and cracking. That was private. That was our marriage. I tilted my head. So were those texts. She stepped inside without asking. Her hands were shaking. She had a crumpled tissue clutched like a weapon. She called me sobbing, Mason. Sobbing. Do you know what you've done? I stayed calm. I had to. She deserved to know who you are. Not just who you pretend to be on Thanksgiving. That hit her. I saw it. That microsecond flicker of truth flashing through her panic. But she still couldn't admit it. She sat on the edge of the motel bed, clutching her temples like the room was spinning. I didn't even sleep with him, she said again, like repetition would rewrite the past. It was just texts. Just flirting. I was lonely. So was I said. Except I didn't text another woman every night while my wife was in the next room pretending I didn't exist. Silence again. But this time, it didn't belong to her. It belonged to me. And she couldn't stand it. You're not innocent, she whispered, voice thin. You've been cold for months. I was frozen, I said. You were the one holding the ice. She stood up, pacing now, agitated. Okay, we can fix this. I just need you to talk to Mom. Tell her it was exaggerated. That it's private. That. No, I cut in. You don't get to decide what's private anymore. She stared at me like I'd become someone she couldn't recognize. And maybe I had. Maybe I needed to. She walked out without saying goodbye. But I wasn't finished yet. I hadn't just sent the screenshots to her mother. I also sent them to Ames's fiancé. I didn't expect Ames to call me. Honestly, I didn't expect him to exist beyond a username. A smirk in a text bubble, a whisper in the background of my unraveling marriage. But less than 24 hours after I sent the evidence to his fiancé, someone named Lydia, a pediatric nurse judging by her email signature, my phone rang. Unknown number. Florida, area code. I hesitated before answering. Calden. The voice was low, tense. It's Ames. Or James, technically. Listen, I need to talk to you. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. Letting other people squirm in silence had become my new specialty. She knows, he muttered. Lydia. She left. Took her ring off. Said she never wanted to see me again. You blew up everything. I almost said good. But I held it. I let him speak. I didn't think she'd actually send it to you, he continued. Marnie said it was all just venting. That you guys were basically separated. That she was stuck in a dead marriage. There it was again. The rewrite. The version of events people tell themselves to sleep at night. She lied. I said, calm as stone. We shared a bed up until the day I found the messages. She kissed me every morning, whether she meant it or not. And she ignored me like I was nothing. But she never told me she was leaving. She just wanted you as a secret. He cursed under his breath. Jesus. I swear. Man, I didn't mean for it to go anywhere serious. You took her to hotels. That was once. You wrote her poetry. He went silent. Caught. She told you I was pathetic, I added. That I still cooked her dinner. That I rubbed her back when she said her spine hurt. More silence. Was it true? I asked. Did she laugh when she sent that? Yeah. Something in me cracked again. Not like the first time. This time it wasn't pain. It was acceptance. Cold, clear, irreversible. He said, look, man. I'm sorry. I'm not your man, I replied. You played with someone else's life like it was casual. Now live with the fallout. Then I hung up. That same night, Marnie texted me. Not I'm sorry. Not let's talk. Not please come home. Just one line. What did you do? I didn't reply. I waited. An hour later. He's saying Lydia might sue me for emotional distress. Do you even understand what you've started? I did. I understood perfectly. I hadn't just exposed her infidelity. I had peeled back the layer of protection she thought she had. No more secrecy. No more control. No more quiet little affair in the shadows. Everything was in the light now, and it was burning. She thought I'd be too weak to fight back. She forgot what happens when quiet men run out of words. I didn't hear from her for 3 days after that last message. No calls, no texts, no late-night apologies. The silence, ironically, felt like a gift. I spent those days in an Airbnb on the outskirts of town, a converted barn with nothing but wooden beams, dust, and my thoughts. I'd wake up before sunrise, make black coffee, and sit on the porch just breathing in the kind of stillness I hadn't felt in years. Real stillness, not the sharp, icy kind she weaponized during that last month in the house. The real kind. The kind that lets you hear yourself again. But I knew it couldn't last. On the 4th morning, I got a knock. Not on the door. On the window. I turned, startled, and there she was. Marnie, standing outside the barn window like something out of a memory I tried to forget. Her hair was tied up messily, face pale, sweater half-zipped. She didn't look angry this time. She looked unwell, like the weight of everything she'd been juggling had finally caved in. I opened the door. She didn't ask to come in. She just stepped forward, slowly, and then started talking. Fast, like she'd rehearsed it in the car. I messed up. I know that. I know I went too far. But this isn't you. You don't destroy people. That's not who you are. I stood still. She kept going. Ames's life is falling apart. My mother won't speak to me. Half my clients canceled after that anonymous tip, which I know was you, Calden. Don't even pretend it wasn't. It was a simple blind email linking to her public Instagram and the screenshots. Her account went private the same night. I'm sorry, she finally said. But you've made your point. You've punished me enough. I just shook my head. Not in anger. Not in pity. Just in disbelief. Marnie, I said slowly. You ignored me in my own home for nearly a month. You erased me from our life before I even knew you wanted out. And when I gave you a chance to come clean, you doubled down. Do you know how that feels? She started to cry then. The kind of cry that looks real, but comes too late. I couldn't tell if it was guilt or just the terror of being caught. But I didn't comfort her. Not this time. She whispered, what do you want from me? I looked at her. Really looked. And for the first time, I didn't see my wife. I saw the person behind her. The one I never fully noticed because I was too busy hoping she'd come back to the version I fell in love with. I don't want anything from you, I said. That's the difference between us. I never did. She reached out to touch my arm. I stepped back. You can have the house, I added. I already moved my name off the lease. The utilities are yours too. So is the debt. She blinked. What? I canceled the joint account. Told the landlord I'm not renewing. You wanted a new start? This is it. She froze. So that's it. After everything, you're just gone? I smiled just a little, not out of joy, but relief. No, Marnie. You are. Then I closed the door. And this time, she was the one standing outside, talking to a wall that wouldn't talk back. After I shut the door on her, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even sit down. I just stood there for a full 10 minutes, staring at the wood grain, letting the silence settle into my bones like dust after an earthquake. It didn't feel like victory. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like relief and grief crashing into each other so hard that neither one could fully take over. By the time I stepped outside again, she was gone. I didn't expect her to come back after that. And she didn't. What I did get was a single text, the next morning. You're not the person I married. She meant it like an insult. But the truth is, she was right. I wasn't. And thank God. The person she married was quiet to a fault. Conflict avoidant. A fixer. The kind of man who'd apologize for existing too loudly if it made someone uncomfortable. The kind of man who believed love meant being endlessly patient, even when it was killing you. I spent the next 2 weeks scrubbing her out of my life. I closed every account that had her name on it, called every service provider, forwarded my mail, changed passwords, deleted photos, even returned a wedding gift we'd never opened, a wine chiller we never used because she hated red wine, but insisted we register for it anyway, in case we ever became wine people. We never did. I saw a therapist for the first time in my life. Told her everything. Every silent dinner, every ghosted text, every time I begged for scraps of affection and convinced myself her coldness was just a phase. The therapist just listened. And then she asked the question that rattled me more than any argument Marnie and I ever had. What would your life look like if you stopped making yourself small for people who don't notice when you disappear? That question followed me home. It sat in the passenger seat, slept in the next room, whispered at me while I cleaned out the last drawer of the house I no longer lived in. And little by little, I started to see the outline of something I'd forgotten, myself. One night, I logged back into an old email I hadn't used in years, back when I used to sketch, back when I thought I might write a comic book someday. The inbox was dusty, mostly spam and auto promos, but hidden near the bottom was an unread message from 3 years ago, a response from a small publishing house that had liked a sample I'd sent. They'd asked me to submit more. I never responded, because Marnie had told me, that's not realistic. That night, I wrote back, I don't know where that path will lead. I don't know what the next version of me will become, but I know one thing now with absolute certainty. She was right. I'm not the person she married. And thank God for that. 3 months passed. The air felt different. Not just because the seasons were changing, but because I was. Every corner of my life that used to echo with her absence was now filled with something else. Space. Not emptiness. Space. For new things. New thoughts. A new rhythm. I didn't hear from her again after that final text. Maybe she moved away. Maybe she stayed in the house. Maybe Ames took her back. Maybe he didn't. I stopped checking. Her story was no longer mine to follow. I moved into a smaller place on the edge of town. Nothing fancy. 1 bedroom. No dishwasher. Creaky floors. But it was mine. I hung up my own art on the walls. Not hers. Mine. Black ink on rough paper, the kind of stuff I hadn't made since college. I was rusty. Awkward. But every crooked line felt like a breath I hadn't taken in years. I started writing again too. Late at night. Just a few pages at a time. A story about a guy who wakes up one day to find the world's forgotten he exists, and how he has to choose whether to fight to be remembered or walk away and start over. I don't know if it'll sell. I don't care if it does. I'm not doing it for recognition anymore. Last weekend, I met someone. No, not a date. Not like that. Just a barista at this local coffee shop who complimented the sketch pad under my arm. We talked for 10 minutes about nothing in particular. Her cat, my terrible handwriting, how the town's bookstore always smells like dust and peppermint. It was normal. No pressure. Just human. And when I left, she said, it's nice to meet someone who listens. It hit me harder than I expected. Because for so long, I was trying to be heard in a house that refused to listen. I begged for attention in whispers and choked on silence. I gave love like a service. Quiet, unconditional, and unpaid. But now, Now I speak louder. I take up space. I draw. I write. I breathe without asking permission.